Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient. Been dealing with cancer since 2021, doing very well. There's a lot I'm going to share on the channel here coming up that's going on in my life, and I'll be kind of like piecemealing it as things develop. One of the things I like to mention is an upcoming live event at Marywood University in Pennsylvania on September 30th and November 1st. It's the live in-person event for Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, hosted by Tim Sohn and Erica Newbert Campbell. And this will be a great opportunity to get together with people, who watch the show and things like that in person. And I've been blessed and honored to be named keynote speaker of the event. And other speakers include Emily Harmon and James Kieswetter, James Gardner, Mitch Marchuski, who is the brother of Nightbird, who was on America's Got Talent. So there's a tremendous lineup along with Tim and Erica, who are absolutely phenomenal. And I look forward to meeting everyone in person there. So make sure to mark that down on your calendar. If you're in the area, we'd love to see you and love to meet you in person. So yeah, put that down. I am so fortunate, so blessed, and so honored to have an amazing person. And I always look for people who are inspiring, who have a great story, who have a different story, who have a different perspective, because that's what this journey is all about. I don't want to rehash the same things over and over and over again. I want to have different aspects and different perspectives because there's so many of them. And that's what we bring to the table today, is just a phenomenal person. Her name is Sayen Gates, and she's from South Carolina. And so what I'd like to do is bring her on. Sayen, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sayen Gates. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I am a life coach, well, shadow life coach. What that is that someone that helps you deep dive beyond the surface. I help you deconstruct and reconstruct how you think about yourself, as well as how you think about certain situations like grief, trauma, everything else, and we work it so that way your authentic self can shine. And I'm very happy to be here.
I am happy to have you here. We are thrilled because this is going to be worth your time to watch this and learn some incredible things from a different aspect. So let's talk about you've endured some tremendous hardship in your life. So let's start at the beginning with the passing of your father. Please share with us about that and what was going through your mind.
Okay, so in 2000, September 15th, 2005, um, after I had come home from school, I found out my father had passed away. Earlier that week, I had saw him a couple days earlier, and we were all having a good time at the house. And then for some reason, I felt like that this was it. For some reason, life paused for that second, and I had no idea why. Then I would say like a couple of days later, um, I had a dream about him being hurt and um, no one being able to help. So I woke up and I had called my aunt, my dad, sister, my aunt, and I I said, is my father okay? Is everything fine? And she's like, yeah, he's fine. Why? He's just now coming into Colombia. Um, and I told her all about the dream. She's like, yeah, baby, your father's fine. Everything's okay. And she, from that point, she put me at ease. And then I went out throughout my day. And then September 15th rolled around and they found him inside his truck, unresponsive, um, not able to breathe. And about time I found out um, he had passed away, I had just come out of school. So for me, the hardest thing a moment about that was the fact that everyone talks about having their person and being a daddy's girl. It was more than that for me because I didn't have too many people to talk to. I was a hyper introverted, extroverted child with a lot of energy and nowhere other place to like actually seek out like how to express it. So in my case, I would seclude myself with books because it gave me a different perspective on different things. Or I would listen to music, and that would be one of the things that, from even in my older years, would be able to help me not just function, but be able to understand different situations. So after finding out he had passed away, I think it was a couple of days before I actually was able to eat. Um, I don't even think at that time I didn't want to talk to anybody. I just secluded myself off because I was like, at that time I was 12 and I had a very close relationship with God. And I was like, seriously, you really left me out here alone, and I don't have too many people to talk to or not able to understand how my brain works. And it was very upsetting for me and it made me angry. Sometimes it made it hard for me to actually express myself to others. And that was when the decompressing started, where it's like you would throw it in the back of your head and you'd be like, it's okay now. We gotta do something. We gotta move forward. So from that point, I've just lived my life saying that I know you're with me. I know you're walking with me. So there's nothing, you may not be here physically, but I know you're with me.
I can't even imagine to lose your father at that age, and especially because you were so close to him. Uh, I just can't imagine the devastation. I mean, I'm sure you were absolutely devastated and felt so isolated. So how were you able to move away from that and move forward? What did you do?
Um, in my case, as I spoke before, like I had a very deep relationship with God. So it's like I would have conversations with him because I always thought of him as a second dad. And I'm like, Dad, um, I kind of miss my earthly dad. And this is getting very hard for me. I would talk to him every day and I would let him know, I'm like, look, this is very hard. I was like, I want someone to talk to. And it's like a still voice sometimes will tell me, talk to me. I haven't gone anywhere. Talk to me. It's like I think in his case, he was like, we get very attached to the people that we hold dear, but we forget that they're a reflection of what's in his heart. And a lot of times we have to look at it like this: you honor the time that you're with someone, you give thanks for every single laughter, you honor every bit of the laughter, the silly, the sadness, the everything in between with that person, but you never forget them. Even though the world stops spinning, you never forget them. That was also when my love of poetry was being born, and I would write about him occasionally, and then I would write about love. what it meant and what it represented to me. And he would always be the inspiration for it.
That is awesome. I think that's in my case, and I don't know what it is in your case. I'm able to write my best when I'm just invested in it. When I have the passion for it, when I am so in tune with whatever that subject is, that's when my best writing comes out. And what are your thoughts on that?
I understand. I agree with you because I couldn't write no poems without knowing exactly what it felt. um it takes a lot of energy after you're done because then you're mentally exhausted because you're like, oh, I could have said more on this. You start getting very critiquative and you're like, I could have said more on this line. um this one could have been a little bit more softer. How can I upgrade that? And it's like sometimes my mom would have to pop my hand and be like, leave it alone. I'm like, it's just then but I wanna. She's like, stop it. And then my friends would do the same thing because they're like, it sounds fine. Don't be over analyzing. I'm like, I can't help it. I am such a perfectionist. It's ridiculous. Because I was like, I want people to know how I feel. I want people to hear my heart. Say, for example, it's like you can literally call up that one person and you can hear their voice and it puts you at ease. The same thing is like I want to do with my poetry and like my podcast, and like you're having a physical conversation with my heart and you're actually understanding where I'm coming from.
We all need a release, and we all do it in different ways. You know, some people write, some people journal, some people do YouTube YouTube channels or Rumble channels or whatever it may be, podcasts on Spotify. But it's important to be able to express yourself in your own way. Uh, let's talk about that. What do you think about that?
Um, as in like expressing how do I express myself or just how you should express yourself, period.
The importance of being able to express yourself.
Oh yeah, that's where your authenticity lies. You can't run away from it. There was I had a friend that told me a long time, in your life you wear a lot of masks, but you should never forget the original one you were born with, because then you forget yourself. So it's like I had to figure out what that meant. And it wasn't until like my 20s that I was like, okay, so this is what I mean. Because in people's life, you're wearing different masks to help them. So it's like, for one person, I had to be the supportive, strong friend because they didn't have no strength. On another hand, I had to be the tough love person because they didn't have that type of household or the parent that did that for them. Not saying I'm their parent, but being able to have that supportive force in their life was one of those things that they needed. Or like I had to step in sometimes, even if no one asked me, to help someone like financially at that time. Um, it's not something that I can. It's something I can turn off now. It was not something I could turn off then. But the important thing is, I was expressing who I was, authentic, kind, sweethearted, willing to do anything to help him. But I always made sure that Ariel was secured. Um, Even though I was like, my name is Sayen, I had to make sure the inner child Ariel was okay, because it's like it takes a lot of check-ins for that.
I
Like, are we
totally get
okay?
it. Totally get it. So let's move forward in the timeline of your life. Uh, how did the experience with your father help you in your experience with your aunt? Let's talk about your aunt, what was happening with her, and how you were able to so unbelievably effectively help in that situation.
Well, fast forward later on, I had graduated from Virginia College and I was now a certified medical assistant, and I worked for a GYN office for about almost 4 years, 3 years. And I learned so much being a phlebotomist, being around the doctors that were amazing, and learning from the nurses what are some steps that some women can take if they're trying to pursue their health. And I try to apply everything I learned. Also, that when I was working during COVID, to her, like knowing that movement was one of the main keys to actually getting better, because I knew that for her, she was always so used to moving. She never sat down at one time because she probably felt like that she wasn't doing anything. Henceforth, where I get it from. So,
What was your aunt's name?
oh, her name was Deborah Baker.
Okay. We want to
And
acknowledge her and bring her back to life to share this experience. So uh, I am so excited to hear this. So go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting you there.
no, you're good. Um, with my aunt Deborah, she was always a person that was on the move, and she know when to stay home, but like she was similar to me, always on the move. And that was something that ran into our family. So I was like, okay, so since I know that her schedule used to before she retired was because she was a baker for a a big company, and she would travel from here to there, from I think from Atlanta to Charleston. I think she had went farther than that. And some days she'd be exhausted. Other days she would have enough energy, but she would have to jump to go help other people bake. Um, she always had a kind heart, never once made anybody feel less than. She gave you her undivided attention, even
So
with me.
so when did she start having issues with her health? What's the timeline on that?
She started having issues with her health around the time of when after I graduated college, for about after 2 years of me graduating. Well, sorry, it was longer than that. And I decided to exit out of the field uh, tremendously. I had just moved back in. I just moved home to help. I didn't know there was a problem then, but I remember having this dream one morning, and it was very, very intense. And for some reason, it was like God was showing me two people swapping, the person that I knew from the person that I currently have in my life. And in my term, my interpretation was that everybody gets exchanged for someone. So I don't leave you behind. Next thing I know, I see her in that exchange, but I can never see the person that was coming. So I woke up crying and everything. And as I came out of my room, took a right, went to the kitchen, and my mom was patting her back. And I was like, is there something that you need to tell me? And my mom said your aunt found out it's not bronchitis, it is stage 4 lung cancer. And first initial thoughts were, okay, so this is not what I expected. um, I don't, I was like, this is something that's closer to home than most. And I feel like, how do I put this? It was very heavy because it's now I had a responsibility to actually now take care of her. she was crying and she was crying very, very hard because she was a woman of faith. She didn't think that this was what it was. Just thought it was just a normal cold that you can just knock out and we can go on our lives. But the way her face looked that day, I didn't. It didn't look defeated, but it just looked like she didn't know what was going to come next.
I
So,
have a quick question, and maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here.
mhm.
With that dream that you had where you saw your aunt was being exchanged, have you found out who that person was that was coming into your life?
I have not met them yet.
Wow. Wow.
It's still going. The time
Wow.
periods are never. The one thing I can say about those types of dreams, time periods are not exactly expressed. It's just the fact of, hi, this person is going to be exchanged for someone. And I want you to be aware of it. And these dreams are something that's been in my family for years. I just didn't think I would get it. um, because from what I remember is that when uh when some of us get a certain age, all of us ends up having these types of dreams, whether it be I think about 16 or starting in your 20s, because you start to get more of a discernment in God from that point of saying, hey, so I understand that I am your vessel, so use me as you will. Again, your spirit says that your mind did not catch up just yet because you're thinking as the age that you are. So at this time, I was in my 20s when all these started to happen. So for in any case, now I haven't met them just yet, but
Do you think you'll know when you do?
it's always an inner knowing.
Wow.
Uh, he gives you signs in little bits. When I had lost my father, later on, I was in my life, I would say probably about 5 or 6 years down the road. I was just starting in medical. I realized later on that I was going to need some help. And I was like, Dad, this is getting mentally draining. I can't do this. My head hurts. When I stayed, I think it was like a halfway house for people renting out rooms. There was an older guy, his name was Willie, and he'd always come check on me. And when he see me do my flashcards, he would say, okay, I was like, what do you got to do? And he'd hold up the flashcard silly, and he's like, what is this? And I was like, bone. He's like, that is not what it says on this card. What is this? And he would make me laugh because I was like, I remember my father being that goofy. And I remember him walking around. And to this day, right now, he is my godfather. I have dubbed him my godfather. He checks in. He's like, hey daughter, how are you doing? I was like, I am here. My brain is fried. I'm here. He's like, don't worry. I believe in you. Have you studied today? Like, he does the things that like my dad used to do when I was like 14. Sorry, when I was 12 and 10, when I couldn't understand my homework. So I was like, okay, so that was the exchange that I did not see coming. And I was in my 20s when that happened. So it takes a lot to be patient with God's timing instead of having it under your timing, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's dive into your experiences with your aunt being a caregiver,
Okay.
because that's an aspect that we're talking about here and that people want to know. I mean, in my opinion, caregivers are just absolutely special people, and I saw that with my father when he was in the home, in his home, senior home, and the caregivers with just such beautiful compassion. And that's what I had when I was going through my worst, was where people were just so kind and so helpful, and how important that is in a cancer journey to have that loving support. Let's talk about that and your experience as a caregiver with your aunt.
So with my aunt, I could I wanted to the before I answer that question, she knew that I was a goofball. So when they told me, I was like, so what do you want for your victory dinner? So do you like want collard greens? You want fried chicken? You want shrimp? And I would see that would make her laugh. And during the time that I was helping to take care of her, I would walk in, I'd be like, hello, gorgeous. How you doing? Your man know you single. Or it's like I would do little things to make her giggle because like that was something that she loved about me. And I wouldn't be myself if I didn't add that to the mix. So for me, adding that type of humor when taking care of her, or like when it came down to her breathing treatments, I would say, or like do silly stuff to make her laugh and she just roll her eyes at me. I'm like, listen, you love me. That's all that matters. Or like giving her water and giving her medicine. Again, I'll always add some humor in here just to make sure that she would be okay.
That is absolutely awesome. I love that. Uh, it is so difficult to become a caregiver, and the crazy thing about it is you're dealing with a human being, and so because you're dealing with a human being and emotions, and there's it's so complex and it's so draining. So could you talk about that aspect of how you were able to keep your sanity uh, through the whole process, and also how long were you a caregiver?
So I was only a caregiver for her at about a year. Um, because in October, I had found out when I had went to work when she passed. Before that, I realized that it's a hard subject, at least on that. Um, when it came down to caring for her, it did feel like my life got shut off for 5 seconds. Like there was nothing that I could physically do to, I couldn't go out because it would be rotating shifts with me and my mom. So my mom would feel like she needs a break and she would be like, can you take over to watch her? Because I need to go out for a second. So she would go out probably like an hour, hour and a half or so. It's just to have the mental break because that gets draining after a while. And it's all fun when you put yourself in it as a caregiver, but no one talks about like the mental strain. In some cases, it felt like I was in prison. And it's like, as much as I try to make a light of the situation, I would have to deal with the mental emotions of she might not be here. So there was at one point I had my turn to take a break, and I wanted to do more than just 30 minutes. I wanted to do almost an hour. So I drove to a friend of mine's job, and I sat there and we talked, and I told them that it feels very suffocating sometimes. I felt like I was being caught. There was no chance for me to actually have me time. Um, occasionally I would have to check like my personal attitude because I would get irritated because like 1 minute I'm feeling like I'm asleep and the next minute I hear her yelling down the hall. Cause I think it was one point she felt like something was trying to take her. So I would have to hear her down the hall and I would run and I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? She's like, I don't want to be alone.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay. And I would sit with her um and try to calm her down. There was a couple nights where she couldn't sleep and she would argue against me saying that you need to get some rest. And I'm like, I'm not going to sleep till you go to sleep. So when she finally goes to sleep, I could sleep on the couch next to her. So that way, if she needed anything, I would be me and my plushies. We would be right there just hanging out. There was one point she could not sleep, no matter how much um, anybody was in there. And I would sit there and I would pray for her so that way she could have some calm, some type of peace. And that seemed like it helped her more than anything else. And I used to do it like once or twice a night.
wow. Wow. Cyan, I'm going to ask you a couple questions here because that's what I do.
You fine?
Would you like to come back and join us again for part two, uh, so that we could finish really effectively telling your story? Would you like to come
Yes.
back? Okay, awesome.
Yes.
And so my second question is we're going to wrap this interview up. What is your final thought that you would like to leave with the audience for today?
If you are a caregiver, because I have two, if you're a caregiver, your emotions are valid. And if you need to take that moment, take it. Because the way you feel and the way that you respond, the ones that you're taking care of, they'll see it. I think one of the main issues was the fact that my aunt felt like she was a burden. Well, correction, she didn't want to feel like a burden. And I made sure that when I stepped in that room, I was not the exhausted, tired, and emotional daughter that she had. I was Ariel, goofy, fun loving, and always tried to uplift her, knowing that she will be okay. For those that are actually cancer patients, current or previous, you are loved so much. And it takes a lot for us to show it, or not even a lot. It takes no little. We care about you so much. And just understand that we're riding the train with you. So have a lot of patience.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your just incredible words of wisdom, Cyan. Thank you so much. And we're going to come back to you with part two. And I'd like to thank everybody at this point in time. And please subscribe to the channel To Be Your Own Hero. Make a comment in the comments section. Ring the notification bell for further interviews. And I am so excited that we're going to come back and finish up with part two with you, Cyan. And what I like to do is to share a couple of quotes from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. That's the way I end interviews. And the first one is, never take no for an answer. I love that. Absolutely love that. And the second quote is, hold the image of the life you want and make the image become fact. Thank you once again for joining us on To Be Your Own Hero. Let's help make this world a better place, because the world is not going to become better unless we make it better. I mean, it's going to take effort from Sayen, from me, from you, whoever you may be. We can all do our share to help make this world a better place, because that's what it's going to take. And life is a blessing. We are blessed to live life, open our eyes every day, and experience this beautiful thing that we call life, because time is our most precious commodity, and we cannot waste it. You can't waste it feeling sorry for yourself. Help is out there. If you need people to talk to, reach out to Cyan, and I know that she'd be willing to help you, and make the most out of every single day, every single hour, every single minute, and every single breath. Thank you so much for joining us at To Be Your Own Hero. Have a fantastic week, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.